And now, Minion Works presents Freelance Heroism.
He hasn't touched anyone's feet.
I bet he has.
As far as
You
I know.
don't. He's still in the observation phase.
Yeah.
He's just looking at p-values and studying some charts. I don't know. I bet there's something to those crazy people. What if feet were awesome? What if we just didn't know? What if everyone was so turned off by them? They're like, oh my god, feet. But what if? I don't know. What if they're just fucking incredible? Like Quentin Tarantino had a foot thing.
I heard a rumor that Joss Whedon also has a
I'm telling you,
foot thing.
it's fucking weird, right? It's so common.
Is it just guys though? I've never heard of a woman with a foot.
I don't know. I bet women do it too, but it's probably just not as obvious. Women buy shoes nonstop. It's like porn for some women. To buy 10,000 shoes. Maybe there's a hunter-gatherer aspect to it, where the hunter is observing your feet, walking around, watching feet, right?
Right.
While the gatherer is I need foot accessories, to gather.
Maybe.
I don't know, but I think that's probably, there's got to be something there. Because who the fuck cares what goes on your foot, right? A fucking shoe?
Yeah.
Who fucking cares? I'm going to show you the ugliest broke-ass shoe
Okay.
ever. Look at that fucking thing. It's dirty.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fucking messed up.
God.
That's actually a rhino. It's a drawing of a rhino on my shoe, whatever. They're fucking old as balls, man. I don't give a fuck what's on my foot. I don't even look at the damn things. They're on the bottom. They're on the bottom, man. That's who gives a shit about the point of an ice cream cone? Who the fuck cares? I'm sorry, this cone isn't pointy enough. Please, I'd like a better one. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get a cup. How pointy is that? All right, sorry.
It's okay.
That took a weird turn.
It did.
We'll get off on a better foot this time. Get off on a better foot.
Oh.
You guys are welcome. If that makes it, that needs to go in. If the rest of the conversation of the foot thing goes in, that's solid. Get off on the good foot. Hey. Solid. Hey, freelancers. I'm Deece.
And I'm Rachel.
And today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a review of a book that I was sent. And we weren't sure exactly who was going to look into it because I wasn't 100% certain what book it was. Someone had messaged me and they had said they wanted me to take a look at a D&D book. And of course, yes, send me a D&D book to look into. That's what I want to do that. But when it got here, I was going to send it to one of the freelancers that was best qualified to review it, right? So it was going to be Rachel if it was a novelization or something like that, and then we're going to give it to D-Walk if it was going to be a campaign setting or something. But when it got here, much to my amazement, it was actually an art history book, the history of the art of Dungeons and Dragons, and it is rad. Let me just put that out there. I also want to read this press release thing. All right, it's Dungeons and Dragons Art and Arcana Visual History by Michael Whitwer, Kyle Newman, John Peterson, and Sam Whitwer. The foreword by Joe Manganiello. I know I'm going to say that name wrong. There's a lot of fucking vowels in a row. Manganiello. Joe Manganiello. But one of those is right.
Uh-huh.
I've heard people pronounce it differently. Anyway. Dungeons & Dragons is the most iconic gaming franchise in the world with more than 40 million fans in its history and 10 to 15 million active players. This officially licensed illustrated history provides an unprecedented look at the visual evolution of the game, showing its continued influence on the worlds of pop culture and fantasy. It features more than 700 pieces of artwork from each edition of the game's core books, supplements, and modules, decades of Dungeons & Dragons magazine, classic advertisements, which are awesome, by the way, and merchandise. A never before seen sketches, large format canvases, rare photographs, one-of-a-kind drafts, and more from now famous designers and artists associated with the game. The team was granted unparalleled access to the archives of Wizards of the Coast and the personal collections of top collectors, as well as the designers and illustrators who created the distinctive characters, concepts, and visuals that have defined fantasy art and gameplay for generations. This is the most comprehensive collection of D&D imagery ever assembled, making for the ultimate collectible for the game's millions of fans around the world, which spans over 5 generations. Now, that is I know that that's like the press release thing. But that's fucking, if that encapsulates it so well. It's such a good book.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I was not prepared. I got this book the day I was leaving to go do a panel at a convention, right? So I was on the way out the door with a big box full of art and everything. Put it in the truck. Mail gets there, and I totally spaced that they were sending it to me. It looked like it was one of those manila kind of folders or whatever, but it weighed like 1 billion pounds. I'm like, what the fuck did I order? Did I order tank parts? And it comes in, and I open it up, and I just fucking nerd out for like a long time. It's wrapped in plastic and everything. I'm like, I gotta go now, but I don't want to take it to a convention and have to leave it by itself. And I don't want to carry it. So I'm going to leave it here, but when I get back, I'm going to read it, right?
Yeah.
As soon as I got back, I ripped the plastic off, and I was delighted by the stuff that's inside. So, Rachel, you had said that you had seen this book in stores.
Yeah, I was actually in or a bookshop. I don't know if we should drop.
Yeah, just say a bookshop.
I was in a bookshop.
You can bleep out too, like beep.
Okay.
So that no favoritism here.
Right. Unless they sponsor us.
They're not going to.
I was in a bookstore the other day because I spend all my spare money on books, and I actually saw it on display. It had come out, I think, like a week before, and it looked really, really cool. It's a huge book.
It's massive.
Yeah, and I almost bought it. I might still go out and buy it. It depends on how much of a glowing review Deece gives it.
I am, just to preface this before I go into how weird it is, right? I am not generally a tangible book guy. Like the hard copies of things, I generally find them very repugnant. You know what I mean? I don't like the idea of, I might want to change books at the drop of a hat. You know what I mean? So I want to have them digitally, normally. Mm-hmm. I'll say that. This is one of the few cases where I would like really prefer this hardbound thing. I can't explain to you how heavy this thing feels. It feels like you're at like a D&D tome.
Yeah. And it's a hardback. And
yeah. I could kill a guy with this. It's super thick. Right. And it's well built too. Like, and a lot of times, when you get a book, sometimes it's like you can tell the pages are kind of tucked under and glued loosely. Mm-hmm. This is like solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's not something most people care about, but if it's going to be on your shelf, it's going to be in your collection. In particular, for me, who my collection is small because everything I own is digital generally. It's definitely amazing. This is sort of like something you could leave out on a coffee table for like if you're a nerdy kind of guy and you have nerdy friends coming around, or geeky. Sorry, I know some people are pedantic about that, but like. It's really fantastic. If you pick it up for 2 seconds or you pick it up for a couple hours, it's fucking incredible. Like, just to make a point, I wanted to get to this part relatively quick. I saved some pages here. Drizzt Do'Urden?
Yes.
Drow elf hero and rival of matron Malice. They show pictures in here, right, of all these like iconic things from Dungeons and Dragons, right? So like first generation art of orcs. I don't think I'm being rude when I say that it is gross. That art is fucking gross. But the thing that's important is like you see the migration of ideas, right? Like you see the ideas that were originally created, and then you see the next interpretation of them, what parts of that were valuable to the design, and kind of got translated into the second edition handbooks and books and everything. And then when it goes to third edition, the same thing. Like, what ideas? It's like when you draw a sketch and then you put another sketch on top of it, you're kind of polishing, drawing things out. Then you put the inks on it. Over time, you're sort of, what's the word I'm looking at? Fabricating the image, the design.
Mhm.
And that's what these do. They give you a long timeline, like from the 70s to today. And they give you these like images back to back. You can really see what parts were important to the designers, and what's changed over time. And
Mhm.
and I think that's, I mean, I don't know how to explain. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Right.
I mean, this book has got to be worth, $40 million. Like, it's fucking amazing.
Is it just orcs? Or are there other?
Oh,
monsters, or?
there's everything. They have the beholders, which is one of my favorite things, the eye stalks and everything.
Oh, that's
The original beholder,
Mhm.
again, I know that when they first created him, they didn't have maybe as fleshed out design as they were hoping for. It was, the early games are way about imagination. They still are today, but now they give you like supplemental shit to kind of help paint the image.
Mhm.
The original beholders are really gross looking. There's like a ball of like, it's like a meatball of eyes. It's fucking gross. But then, I mean, you can tell that the stalks were kind of thick. The eye stalks were like a thick thing. And then eventually they kind of, I guess, were going for a more, I don't know, malevolent kind of look. So they kind of sculpted the orb to have a face and teeth kind of shaped into the orb, like almost like it was molded of clay or something.
Oh, okay.
And the stalks became smaller, bigger at the base, and then smaller as they got out toward the eyes to kind of
like taper off.
Yeah. As an artist myself, I can look at these designs and I can see exactly what they were thinking, almost more than if they were to just tell me, like, show and not tell. So like, I can look at these designs for the orcs. That's another one that I had saved because I just love these images, right? So this first image, I'm gonna try to describe it to you as best I can. The first is just like, it looks like a really crudely drawn human, right? And he's like holding a stick that is obviously a sword. It's very rough and loose and kind of hops back and forth between hatching and blocked shading. It's weird. It's a weird look to it, right? But it does. That's where everything starts. These designs get polished up over time. The second edition, I'm pretty sure, are horses and pigmen like fused. That's what the orcs look like. It's a very weird thing. And then you start to see, like around third edition, this kind of maybe traditional orc kind of emerge. Like he's like got a longer, like under, like the top lip is much longer and the bottom lip is very pronounced and stretched out. And you see that amongst nearly every orc design now. I mean, throughout everything. D&D sort of paints so the history of these being accurate, like being able to see each change, doesn't just apply to D&D, it applies to everything. Like World of Warcraft now, the orcs are so taken from these concept designs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's really, really cool. And some of the art in this is just mind-blowing. The one complaint that I really have is that this is so petty, I'm so sorry. In the second edition Player's Handbook, there's an image that is burnt into my brain from when I was a kid, right? The second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Handbook with the horseman with the winged helmet on the cover. You'll know which book I'm talking about. There's in the spells section, I think, there's a wizard who has crafted an illusion. He's like an old pervy wizard, and he's holding this it's like a view from behind, so you see his face and his hand out, and it's like this topless lizard woman, and he's like perving out staring at it. And I don't know why. It wasn't about the perviness of the image or anything like that. It just, I remember thinking, people are people in any universe.
Yeah.
And like a person even with cosmic powers that were capable of summoning and removing and creating fire and lightning and illusion, that they would still sometimes use their magic for petty gross things, right? And I was a kid, I was like maybe 8 or 9, 10 when I saw that, and I remember thinking that image probably affected me more in D&D. And that was my only complaint was that I couldn't find it in here. It was like one of the first images that I searched for. But I mean, oh, it's fantastic. It's so good. Like, I'm so happy that it's here. And there's like old drawings of maps, like the Tomb of Horrors. There's like fucking sorry, I'm cursing a lot, I know. I get excited. But I mean, some of these are so gorgeous. Like, the art's great. I don't know how to explain it. It's, if you're into the art of D&D or the history of D&D or how they intersect, this is, I don't know how to, I'm normally not this positive about things, but it's absolutely a must-have. Like, it's fantastic.
So is the book broken down into chapters?
It is, and here's another, they never break out of this theme, right? So all of these, by the way, I was just flipping through pages looking at art, and it says professionals always use Grendier fantasy miniatures on their quests. And I'm like, we do. It's true, we do. Yeah, so let me try to find a few. So like one of them is like detect magic, and then one of them is detect magic, pyrotechnics, explosive runes, polymorph self. These are names of chapters, whole segments, and then they sort of apply to the topics that they're going over in the art that they show. It's very cool.
That is cool.
They got like Dragon magazine covers in here, old Dragon magazines, and
cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Also, that iconic second edition image that you know of, like the two halflings trying to peel the ruby out of the eye of that.
Oh yeah.
There's an extended art version here that I've never seen before. I've seen like remakes of it, but I've never seen the original full art, and it's fucking cool. Like, they have the sketches of it.
Oh, that's cool.
It is.
I never played first edition or second. I got in at like 3.5, so I haven't seen a lot of the older style art. Just like more just like the occasional really iconic ones, like, you know, the ruby one that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I mean, though. There's probably a handful of images in the world that are iconic like that, right? So, like the Mona Lisa, Starry Night, the Screamer, right? Like, these are the Scream, sorry. These type of ideas, though, these visual iconography of our times and the people we are, right? They're important. Like, they stick around and they influence every other thing after it. So that image in particular, there's a whole like world of 40-year-old men, 50-year-old men, or whatever, and I statistically less women, but whatever. That these images are like icons to them in the same way as Starry Night would ever be iconic to a person who's into classical art. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just got to the purple worm. I'm just flipping through, just trying to like so there's the purple worm. The original drawing of the purple worm's not bad, but it has undergone some pretty dramatic shifts in design, from the kind of smooth tubular circle mouth, kind of almost amoebic like kind of mouth deal, to having like these large plated jaw lines and stuff like you can tell where each artist was like, this is how I visualized it based on what I was. It's sort of like a game of telephone. Someone whispers into your ear, you imagine what they said, and then you say it to the next person. It's just like that, but with visuals. It's so cool. Like, if there's a Christmas gift, like for a D&D fan, this is pretty rad.
Yeah.
This is pretty. I would be excited to open this. I'm sorry, Mind Flayers. Whoa, this art is crazy bad for the first generation. But it gets so gnarly so fast.
That's cool, because a lot of people, I think, because I know especially lately, D&D 5th edition has been really popular.
Right.
And so a lot of people are just sort of coming into D&D at 5th edition. So
yeah,
I mean, anything about all those other editions, they just see like this really polished product.
And I was thinking about that when I had first opened this up and kind of looked through it to see what kind of thing it was, right? like it's good for older people, right, that remember this old art. Like I'm sort of in a weird time slot where I remember the second edition stuff, but the first edition is blowing my mind looking at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then for younger people too, it's pretty important to have around, because I mean, it's good to know the history of your thing, right? Like if you're into D&D and you want to play it right,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to know a little bit about the universe that any character you'd be playing would be born in.
Yeah.
Do you know, was it Joe Manganiello?
Oh, he's got the Death Saves D&D
Yeah.
clothing campaign. I got like a shirt from them. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
he does the forward in this book, right? And you're always sort of skeptical. I think it's like a trait, a holdover of being like a nerdy kid. You're never 100% certain if everyone's on the level with you, about whether they really like something or not, or whether they're just fucking with you. But he talks about that kind of thing. And I think most of the time forwards in books, I'm not a fan. We've talked about that before. I'm not a fan generally of forwards, like how they talk about whatever. I generally kind of tune out. But this one I think is super important, because the rest of the book is wildly visual. I mean, there's still, explanations of things and text and whatnot, but the meat of it is really in describing the visual of the other artwork. But the opening, though, that forward is very cool, because he talks about that experience that like a lot of people who played D&D, I'm not going to say everyone, but a lot of people recognize as being like a secret. Like D&D was sort of like, up until recently, it was like a shh. Like I play D&D. Shh. Oh, you play it too? Fuck yeah! And the special handshakes and shit.
Right.
But it wasn't something that you didn't wear a T-shirt that said D&D. You know what I mean? Especially not when I was growing up. The fact that this is sort of like become more accepted almost, or more populous or whatever, or the population sort of more accepting of this types of games, tabletop games and whatnot. I think that forward is super important for the people who are getting into it now. People who have, like, you come into it with fans that are open-armed and want to help and are accepting of different types of players. Mm-hmm. When at the time, the people who really dug their heels in and made this game stick around till now, when we're in sort of the promised land of D&D fandom, those people went through some tough stuff. And I think that opening forward in particular is hugely relevant, because maybe the images of the actual game can't give you that. Do you know what I mean? Like, they can tell you how the game developed and everything, but they'll never be able to give you that human point of contact to how the person playing its experience has changed dramatically.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said earlier, I didn't play the earlier editions. I've heard they're very different from how the game is now.
Yeah, you could get killed by an arrow, like, just right away. Like, boom, dead. But I mean, it's weird, because you play this game all the time, like we do all the time. And so you get kind of used to the one you're playing now. Like, I remember there was a time where all I played was 3.5 or Pathfinder. I know, not D&D, but it's close. And then before that, it was Second. I played Second like nonstop. Even when everyone was like, no more Second, I was like, no, fuck you guys, Second. But that's the thing, that the one you're playing now is the one that kind of takes over your mind, and that's the universe you're lost in. And so seeing some of this stuff, like, these are from like people who are way older than me, like the old Fiend Folio art. Do you remember the Fiend Folio?
No.
It's got this like kind of skeleton with a sword on the front of it, and he's got like a kind of like a band on his forehead.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But do you see what I mean, though? Is like,
yeah, like I recognize I didn't know what he was from, but I've definitely seen that guy before. Yeah,
he's from the cover of the Fiend Folio, and they've redone him a million times. I'm trying to remember the guy, because I had read this in here. The original art for this was actually pretty interesting. Like, some of the art was like inspired by other poses from famous comic books. So it was like Nick Fury, I think, is the one.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, so like Nick Fury, like a lot of his action poses and stuff like that were sort of transcribed almost. So you can see it's the exact same kind of pose,
Mm-hmm.
but with the sword instead of a pistol. It's very interesting.
Huh.
Like, because you never know what kind of things inspire things until you see them next to each other.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. You definitely sound excited about the book and that you liked it.
Well, I do very much, and everyone should go out and get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, some of the sketches that were drawn were really rough because, I mean, it was the first go at something. You're trying to make something brand new. Maybe you haven't practiced a whole lot, but I mean, there's like letters from Gary Gygax and shit like that written in here.
Oh,
Like
cool.
things that are signed. The original campaign header. There's a character sheet in here that has like 9 numbers, and that's the sheet. Like, I'm like, what? Can a brother get some bend bars and lift gates up in this bitch? But it's pretty cool. I really, really like this, and I would suggest that anybody who has even a passing love of the art of D&D or the history of it should go pick this thing up, or at least gift it to somebody. I mean, if you have a kid, this is fantastic for a kid. You know what I mean? Like, if you have like Jake, like our player Chunikote, if you have Jake on your squad and he's real old and he probably remembers everything in this book, this is like a nostalgia trip for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty great. I'm really happy to have this.
No, it's really cool. I know that like sometimes when people get into a hobby, you know, like if you know someone who's into D&D, you might maybe get them like a module or like a map pack or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, how cool and different is it to be like, oh, instead of a supplement that, you know, half of your friends are probably going to have anyway, here's like a really cool art book.
Yeah.
About the history of this game that you love.
Yeah. I was thinking about it earlier. I kind of said something about that I don't generally like the hardbacks of books, right? They bother me because like when I'm going through spell lists or going through maps or going for artifacts, wondrous items and whatnot, I'm flipping back and forth. I'm either using the SRD, the OCG, or I'm flipping through, you know, like a million different PDF files, or and I like the ease of having all of those easily swappable. I don't want to have a desk stacked with 50 books that I have to go through. I'm not a wizard in real life, you know what I mean? I like to make things easier on myself. I even like dice rollers. Everyone hates me for it, but I do. But this is different. Like, it's a compilation of art that was carefully curated in order to illustrate a point. That it started off kind of loosey-goosey, and then over time, all of these writers, these really creative, wonderful writers, and all these really creative and wonderful artists came together to make this universe. And over time, over the course of, you know, multiple generations, this game is still going. It's more popular than it ever was. And now it has like an actual archived history that you can put on your shelf next to all the other components. I mean, there are plenty of ways to fill out a collection of a game like D&D, right? There's, you know, you want to get the Unearthed Arcana, you want to get all of the player's handbooks and Dungeon Master's Guide and the really big modules that you want to play. But this is all of those other things I would be happy to put digitally, and they would work just as fine for me. But I don't think if this were a digital thing, like, it would still be valuable. But the hard back of this is fucking great. To have this like sitting, if I have 10 minutes or 15 minutes and I flip through it, I will find something that is very entertaining to me. It's very cool. It's like if nostalgia were a drug, but nobody was mad at you for using it. You could just light up your nostalgia whenever you wanted. Legal in all 50 states. Nostalgia roll. Ask your doctor about it now. May cause leaky buttholes or bloody eyes. May make your hair burn. It'll give you a fat scalp.
I was trying to get like a page count.
Oh, more than you probably could imagine. It's like 400 plus pages.
Wow.
It's hard to get the, I don't know. Some people like to count the appendices. I like the appendices in particular, but there's like, it's like 425, 26-ish.
Okay. Do you know how much it retails for?
$50 US.
This came out late October, so it hasn't even been out for very long.
But yeah, I can't recommend this enough to anybody who's listening. It's a fucking great read.
That's high praise from someone who's normally so grouchy about everything.
I know. I was fully prepared to be positive about the good things and then really lay into the negatives. But I really like it. It's weird. It's weird for me to be so 100% overtaken with it. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I really like it.
Good.
So thank you guys for listening. I hope this was a really long recording. So I hope that Rachel can clip this down to something that's manageable and also not make me sound like an idiot.
I'll try.
You'll try. I'll try my best. All right, but thank you guys for listening to the review, and
thanks to who contacted you and sent this book.
It was actually a guy from Gamerati.
Oh.
He's on Gamerati on Instagram. You can find him there. That's where I kind of know him from, and he's awesome. Lots of cool content and pictures of him game testing and stuff. It's awesome.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, this was our first review. If anyone else out there wants us to review something, it doesn't have to be a book. Maybe just make sure it's at least vaguely nerd related.
Yeah, I also review tacos. If anyone wants to send me tacos, happy to do a chew review.
Yeah, but if anyone wants us to review anything, you can contact us through our email. We're at freelanceheroismpodcast@gmail.com. You can find a link in the show notes. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode Sunday or Monday morning.
Yes.
You can clip out that Sunday. I forget when I post it and when they see it, it's different.